What's up, guys? Mason the Brock Henderson here, and this is Daredevil Season 3, Episode 10, Karen. And you might notice something different about me. I know it might not be completely obvious, but there's something different from the last video I just recorded. Wearing new socks. Yeah. Before I had on black ones, now I've got on gray ones, so feels different, but whatever. Anyways, so getting to the business end of things, honestly, and very, very interesting episode because honestly, when we went back in time and we're seeing Karen's backstory a little bit and kind of where she came from, there's a part of me that, first of all, I could not remember how much of this we delved into before. I remember Kingpin bringing up her brother, but I didn't remember if we'd heard this story before or not. It's not familiar to me. Like, I remembered him talking about her brother and how she was responsible for his death. But I could not remember if we knew the story or not, so that's something that somebody will have to tell me in the comments if anybody watches this and answers my questions. Did we know this story? Did we know the story of Karen? What happened between her and her brother and her dad? Because I knew there were some issues there, but I don't remember how specific they've been in the past. But, I mean, it was an interesting story, getting to see where she came from. And honestly, like, it's kind of a weird start to the episode because it puts Karen in a pretty bad light. Now, granted, what happened in the end was not... It's not really on her. Like, yeah, a lot of what she did cause it, but also her dad wasn't really in the right with a lot of what he did. Her brother did have a hand in what happened as well. He's the one that decided to go burn the trailer, which kind of started the chain of events that led to his death as well. So it's like nobody's really completely like clean in the situation. Everybody has a hand to play, and there's blame to go around. But because of that, Karen definitely was not painted in a good light at the beginning of the episode. So I'm just kind of like, it's not a great start because this episode is titled after her, which means she's the focal point. And when you show her being a jerk to everyone, and she's doing drugs, and she's not going to college, and she's treating her brother awfully, even though he's just trying to help her, and she's with this douchebag of a guy. Like, I don't know. It didn't start the episode off well for me. But by the end of that backstory, though, in the flashback, I mean, it did really hit hard that she's come from a tough place. I mean, everything that she went through between losing her mom, and then she feels like she's the only one trying. She feels like she's the only one trying to keep the store open to begin with. And then she has herself to blame for what happened to her brother. She was the one driving the car. She's the one that caused the accident. It was her boyfriend that kind of started that chain of events as well. So that was all an issue. And then you add on to top of that, her dad just tells her at the end of it, "I don't want you around anymore." I mean, that's rough. And yes, again, she's partly to blame for some of what happened to her that caused this rough ending for this flashback, but I mean, man, it felt like everything was piling on top of her, and there was no way out. So it did hit hard, but yeah, there was kind of that weird mixture of they're trying to make us feel sorry for her, but then also clearly painting her to be not a good person as well. And obviously she's come a ways since then, but yeah, it was a weird flashback scene. But yeah, I mean, after that, everything that happened in the church, with Dex showing up and then Matt showing up to help, I will say, I wish that they'd give Matt like an episode or two where he finally wises up and just rests, because I feel like he's lost a lot of fights this season, and it comes down to he's not fully given himself a chance to heal. Every single time he's getting to that point where he's healing up and he's nearly back to, it's like watching a sports person or a sports player. In any sport, if somebody's not fully recovered from an injury, you can tell. Watching some of the greatest soccer players in the world, when they return from injury, if they're not fully fit, you can tell because they're not quite playing at the same level that you're used to seeing them. And that's kind of how Matt's been this season. And I feel like that's the reason, although it's not been said, because if not, then it's kind of unnatural that Matt just keeps losing every fight because he's normally a better fighter than everybody else around him. But he keeps losing mainly to Dex. But he's lost a couple other fights on top of that, and there's several moments where it feels like he's a step behind what's going on. He's a step behind the action. But here's another one where Dex, again, gets the better of him. I mean, he managed to keep Karen safe, although it was at the cost of... is it Father Wesley? I don't think it's Wesley, because Wesley is the name of Kingpin's guy that Karen killed. So I'm thinking Father Wesley is not right, but Father Wesley, for some reason, is sticking to my brain. I don't know why. So now I've got to look up the name, because, that's just... I'm terrible with names. I hate that I'm terrible with names, because I should be better. But I'm not. So, where is he? Father Lantom. That's what it is. I don't know where I'm getting Father Wesley from. It must be from something else. Like some other movie or TV show that I've seen. I've heard Father Wesley before. But anyways, but yeah, he loses his life protecting Karen, and that's... Ultimately, I kind of figured he wasn't going to make it after seeing that Dex was going to the church. I'm thinking they're probably not going to kill Karen off. If she's going to die, it might be the last episode. It's not going to be with 3 episodes left to go. But I could see them killing off Father Lantom, and so sure enough, they do. And, I mean, it's a good ending for him because he gets a chance to sacrifice himself and sort of atone for all of the mistakes he feels like he made in Matt's life, lying to him about his mother and all that. So, I like it. It's not a bad ending for him. But yeah, going back to Matt, though, again, he loses this fight in the end. Like, he manages to distract Daredevil for enough, like, to keep the people safe. But in the end, he still loses. He still gets beaten down, and then Dex is still going. And obviously, he is helped by the fact that he's wearing that armor, which... gives him a slight edge in the fight. But it still feels like Matt normally is better than this. And I think, again, it comes down to he's not resting. He got mortally injured last season, or at the end of Defenders, narrowly survived, and then he didn't let himself fully heal. He got right back into fighting, and then those injuries keep afflicting him. And it feels like every episode he gets hit again. He gets hit in the head again somehow. And when his senses are dampened like that because of a knock to the head, he's not as good. And that's been shown several times, I feel like. At least that's how I'm reading it. If we're supposed to read it as, no, he's fully fit, it's just Dex is the better fighter, I don't really buy that. Because Dex is shown he's very good when it comes to, like the, I guess, angles and stuff. When it comes to projectile throwing, like that's his strong suit. But in a one-on-one fight, fist to fist, I feel like Matt should be better than him. But in these instances, he keeps losing, and I think it comes down to, again, he's not fully fit. He's not 100% recovered, fully healed, and he needs to get there. So I hope they address that. I hope that doesn't just get glossed over, and they're just like, no, we're just supposed to know Dex is just better than him. That's why he keeps losing these fights, because Dex is just that good. He's that much better than he is. Because I don't know. I feel like that's not quite good enough explanation for me. But if they don't say it, I'm going to assume that that's not the case. But then again, it's also show, don't tell. But I feel like at some point somebody's got to say, look, Matt, you need to take a break. You keep losing these fights. You're not 100% ready to go. Take a break. Because honestly, it would be nice to, especially after this episode, losing Father Lantom, it would be a good time to take a break and let him mourn that for an episode and let him recover, and then you've got 2 episodes for kind of your grand finale type of thing. So I don't know, we'll see what they do, but yeah, all in all, it was very simple episode as far as the content. It's all about Karen, it's all about her backstory, and then Dex going to kill her and Matt coming in to save her. That's pretty much it. So it was pretty straightforward, and I thought well done. So yeah, that's it here. On to the next episode. See you there. Now episode 11, Reunion. It's been a rough season. It really has. Like, it feels like it's been one of those seasons where everything is just going wrong. And it feels like Kingpin is just always a step ahead, and you always feel like the heroes are just not quite able to save the day, and it always feels like everything's going to go wrong. You're just waiting for something to go wrong. And then this is the episode where it finally starts to feel like things are going right. Between Matt and Karen narrowly avoiding everything that happens, but Sister Maggie, Matt's mom, helping them out as well, deciding to use Foggy and the NYPD to help them get out of that situation, and then Brett, whose last name I forget now, but I'm pretty sure he's the guy that Foggy and Matt know from a while back. I'm pretty sure that's the same guy, but using his help because he sees what's going on with the feds and he sees what they're trying to do, and so he pretty much tells Foggy, "Hey, you got us if you want to take the fight to him." Nadim stepping up as well and just finally growing a pair and saying, "You know what? Screw it. I'm tired of living under Fist's thumb. I'm gonna fight back against him. I'm not gonna do what I'm told." And then at the end, manages to save his family's life with Matt's help and finds out that Matt is the guy under the hood now, so he now knows that and he's involved, and it's all going good and I'm excited. Yes. So many moments that I'm just sitting there, I'm just like, hell yeah. I love those moments in shows or in movies and shows and video games. Any moment where you get that moment and it just gets you pumped. You're just like, let's go. That's how I feel right now. I'm excited. 2 episodes left. It's building up to be an epic showdown. I mean, the fact that they have the NYPD on their side now, the fact that they, not just the NYPD is willing to help them fight against Fisk, but now they know that the feds are bought out by Fisk. Because that was kind of my thing that I was starting to feel over the past few episodes when we found out all of these FBI agents were under Fisk's thumb and were working for him. It was kind of like, well, now it's going to be more difficult, right? Because at first I thought it was going to be a story of them trying to prove to the feds, hey, you're being used. But now it's like, well, most of them know that they're being used and they're just doing it either out of fear or because they're being paid off to. So now who are you going to convince? And so now the fact that the NYPD are convinced, they're willing to step up and they're going to probably help out in some way in taking him down. And yeah, it's definitely going to be exciting. Couple things to talk about. First of all, I like the scene on the roof of the building between Matt, Foggy, and Karen. It was finally a moment just for them to... Honestly, any of the scenes between Matt and Karen or Matt, Karen, and Foggy, like those scenes really were well written in this episode, in my opinion. I feel like they did a great job of just telling it how it is. And Foggy, he doesn't have a plan right now, but he's like, look, we got to work together. Like, you're not just going to exclude us from this, which is how it should be. Matt keeps talking about, well, Fisk is always 5 steps ahead of us. Yeah, he's 5 steps ahead of you when it's you coming up with a plan on your own and Foggy doing his own thing and Karen doing her own thing. But if all 3 of you put your brains together, you're probably smarter than him. But they're not doing that, and they haven't done it all season, and that's why Fisk has been 5 steps ahead, because they're each doing their own thing that's kind of counteracting what another person's doing, or they're doing something without the other person knowing. And so it's easy for Fisk to read that, whereas if they're cooperating, if they're all working together, they can plan things without Fisk knowing what's going on. And so Fisk may seem like he may think that he has it figured out. He may see what's going on, but he's not actually seeing what's actually happening. Because they have something else planned. So I like that scene. I like the fact that, Foggy even admitted, he's like, all right, step 1, we work together. Step 2, we come up with a plan. Like, the fact that he doesn't have a plan is funny, but it makes sense, because he hasn't really had a chance to work up a plan. But again, all 3 of them working together probably could come up with a good plan. So, and I think the first step of it is going to be getting Nadim to help them out, keeping his family safe, and then having him be the one to testify and say, hey, we're corrupt. We have been worked by Fisk. He's used us against everybody else. Because I feel like that's probably a good first step, to have one of the agents that was on the detail step up and say, hey, hi, yeah, we're wrong. So I like that. I also really, really like how they're setting up this whole dynamic between Fisk and Matt, because I've been talking about it a little bit for this season. This whole idea of Matt killing him. It was brought up a few episodes ago where it just kind of felt like he was talking about, I need to kill him, I have to kill him. I feel like they've almost made it now where he can't kill him, which now makes me wonder if he is going to kill him. Because I had talked about it before where he was so dead set on, like, I'm going to kill him, that I kind of felt like, okay, they're not going to do it. But now, the way that Fisk has this set up, if he kills him, he's already set up Daredevil as a villain, and he's already basically rewrote the narrative, at least in, most of the public, because, as long as you say something in the media, the public will just buy into it, which we've seen for over a year now. So he's essentially rewrote the narrative now to where Daredevil is the one that framed him for everything that happened, and he's actually the bad guy. So if Matt just goes and kills him now that fits into his narrative of Daredevil's the bad guy. Because, hey, he framed me and now I'm dead because he killed me. Because he couldn't handle the fact that his plan didn't work to frame me for everything. So he's almost set it up in a narrative now where Matt can't kill him. But now because that's set up, I kind of wonder if that means somehow they're going to work it around to where at the end he is going to kill him. I still don't feel like that would fit Matt's character, but story-wise now, I kind of feel like when you set something up like it can't happen or it shouldn't happen, to plot twist you, sometimes it'll end up being where, no, it does happen. So I don't know what to expect from that now, but it is kind of interesting just because of how much the media and how much of this whole, like, narrative and lying to the public and the public's view of everything going on kind of plays into this, and I'm not going to get into a political discussion here because that could go on for hours, and on the internet, honestly, talking politics about most anything is not really going to get you anywhere because most people don't actually want to have a discussion. They just want to tell you why you're wrong. But it really comes down to perception, and it's interesting how they've set that up with Fisk going into that press conference and basically telling his story. It really does kind of show, like, the people that were just booing him, the protesters that were there just booing him, at the end of all of it, when he claims that Daredevil's the one that framed him and set him up, there's some that are like, oh, wait a minute. Is that what happened? Because they don't know. They don't know the story, and that's how the public is most of the time. They just, oh, this one person's saying this, I mean, that could be true. Oh, this one person who's an expert says this, oh, I mean, that could be true. Like, it's interesting how the show is kind of showing that in that little scene. And again, not actually having a bias here or anything, but it's kind of something that hopefully people see this and they're thinking about it. And like, it is very easy to kind of convolute a story to make it look one way. Maybe we shouldn't just believe everything we hear and we should actually do some of our own research because I feel like that would help a lot of people. So, but anyways, the other thing to talk about that's just sort of random, like, I don't know, it was sort of thrown in here and maybe it'll come back into play later. But the what's it called? The White Rabbit and the Snowstorm or something like that. I think that's the name of the painting, the one that Fisk is like obsessed over and wants to have. So we finally find out who owns it. It's this woman who apparently she was a part of a family that so she said the Gestapo, Gestapo? Gestapo. I think it's Gestapo. She said that, like, the Gestapo came in and killed her father in front of her family and all this stuff. So I'm guessing she was living in Germany at the time and, when the Nazis were in control and stuff. And so they might have had something to do with her family. I think the Gestapo were like the Nazi police, if I'm not mistaken. I'm not a history person at all, so don't quote me on that. Numbers is much more my thing. But yeah, so she basically tells him the story of why this painting means so much to her and why she's not going to sell it no matter his price. And in the end, he sees that and he actually respects that. And he's like, Vanessa would want you to keep it. And she's like, well, that doesn't matter to me. He's like, but it does to me, which makes sense for his character. And it was a good character moment for Kingpin because it shows he's not just this complete heartless animal. It's just the things he cares about. It shows he's got a deeper side to him. There's more to him than just the raging monster that we see at times. He's a thinking man. He does have feelings. He's not just a psychopath. So it does show that side of him a little bit more, which is what makes him a complex villain and makes him interesting in my opinion. But as far as how it plays into the story, I have no clue. I don't know if that's kind of just showing things aren't really going right for him now, because shortly after that is when he finds out about, Nadim betraying him, giving Karen to the NYPD, and then he kills his man and then sends men after Nadim and his family. So maybe that's just kind of a prelude to what's about to happen. Like, you want this is what you want to get, but something's in your way. Something's keeping you from having it, and you're not going to get your way this time. Maybe that's kind of what they're playing as. Like, this is what's going to happen. You want to have this. You want this for yourself. You want the city. You want to own all of this, but it's not going to happen. You're not going to get it because there's somebody else with a stronger resolve that's going to stand up to you and keep you from getting that. So that might be what they're playing at. Maybe. I assume we'll see. If the painting comes back at all, I guess we'll see how that story is going to play into the overall plot. But yeah, at the moment, it was just kind of a random scene, and I mean, it was a good scene, but it just didn't tie into really anything else. So, but with all that being said, that's it for these 2 episodes. Only 2 more to go. So excited! Can't wait to see what happens next. So, that's it for me for these 2. So let me know what you think down in the comment section below. What were your thoughts? Let me know. We can talk about and discuss all that good stuff. Leave a like and subscribe for your Daredevil reviews, and I'll see you guys at the next one. Peace out.